once your conversions start to drop, Amazon's going to start showing you less. The most important metric is making sure that you have visibility into your items so that you can make an educated decision whether or not you should price. There are times where Amazon won't even show your advertisement because they don't want to give up their real estate to your item. So they're not even going to show your ad for any price. So you really have to understand, is the item not selling because nobody likes it, or is it not selling because nobody's seeing it and it's not converting? So if people are seeing the item, or you're spending money on advertising and people are seeing those advertisements and it's not converting, then you have to start pulling that lever of potentially bringing the price down.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I am super excited to have Jason Hanan from AZ Seller Kit. We actually got connected through his partner Lenny. So he is one of the co-founders of AZ Seller Kit, which is an amazing tool. And I know a lot of sellers have questions around pricing. And this is something that Jason has been knee deep in for, goodness, I have no idea how long.
Yeah, many years, at least 7 years.
Yeah, so that's by this point, you definitely know the ins and outs of pricing, how to set pricing, how to think about pricing. And so I'm really stoked to get into all of that with you and definitely give some sellers insights on how they should be pricing products. But first off, I would love for you to quickly introduce yourself, how you got into this, and a little bit about what you do.
Sure. We started out with actually retail stores in Manhattan. Around 1996, we used to sell music and movies, kind of like a Tower Records type of store. We had 3 stores called Entertainment Outlet. From there, obviously, CDs and music and movies went down the drain. So in 2014, we'd actually been selling a lot of product on Amazon since 2001 as movies and music. 2014, we took that knowledge of selling product on Amazon and started using it to become what wasn't even an agency yet at that point, but we just started to help some people that were in industries that didn't know how to sell product on Amazon. We started off primarily in apparel, and we had a lot of software that we had built out previously to help manage an Amazon business with, as a reseller of DVDs, and basically just grew our, software background for years as an agency. And we eventually built out AZ Seller Kit to be a forward-facing tool of basically all of the software that we've been building out effectively for 20 years. The main feature that is kind of our hook that has made us popular is we're an automated repricer for private label sellers. So we have insight into tons of account data, a few hundred accounts that are currently on the software. And we're constantly speaking to our clients and learning what they're doing, and just have access to, 500,000 SKUs, honestly, that we're watching pricing on and watching conversions and session data. So it gives us a little bit of an advantage on just knowing what's happening in the marketplace. And as an agency, we're also knee deep in all of this on a day-to-day basis. So we're more of an agency than we are a software. And then the software is really what we use to manage our business, and everybody else gets to gain from the fact that we're living in it every day.
Awesome. Yeah, I know when Lenny and I first connected, he was saying that you had got into it with a lot of clothing brands. And I was thinking yeah, a lot of SKUs to manage when you're talking about SKU volumes in the thousands plus. At that point, repricing almost becomes a necessity and a way to do it at scale that can be pretty daunting without a tool.
It's either sleeping or automating. And I ended up not sleeping for a long time until we automated it. And I tried to do it manually for as long as I could until Lenny eventually convinced me that there had to be a better way to manage this process rather than sitting up all night playing with pricing. Happens to be that I love that stuff, and I actually took a while for him to convince me to get the ideas out of my head. But that was quite a while ago. I'm happy we did it, but we really do believe in automating things in a way that is understandable, trying to accomplish the goals of what would you do if you could actually manage every day. What would you want to have happen? And building out rules that kind of help to do that. It's not really built on artificial intelligence that's going to come up with some solution that you can't understand. We really try and make sure we understand every data point, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and something that we have an answer for every question, because I need to understand what's happening. So that's generally how we built out the tool.
That's amazing. Yeah, so we're definitely speaking to the right person on this question of pricing, the man behind the algorithm. So I'm really excited to really start digging into this, because I know for me having you on, this is a question that I get asked often by our sellers, and we are the ad piece, so I can't speak to this, but I'm like, I know somebody who does. I'm excited to get into this topic. So my first question would be, I know a lot of people will start from square one. They're putting a product on Amazon and it's like, all right, I have to put a product what's my starting price? Like, how do you even go about approaching your starting line?
Yeah, generally you're looking at competitors. You're trying to find some basic Helium 10, look for search volume on the highest search volume keywords and figure out what your item looks the most like on the marketplace. And you're trying to see if you have the margin to actually be at a price that's competitive. You really want to look through that round of keywords and try and see if there's a lot of search volume for a specific keyword, then you want to really try and price in a way that makes sense for a keyword that has a lot of search volume. A lot of times people try and set their pricing without looking at their competitors or at that the main keyword that people are going to be looking at. And you have to picture yourself as if you're on that page, what's it going to look like? And if you're not in the same ballpark, especially when you're launching, you're not going to have reviews, but you need to be at or lower in the beginning. And then you can figure out if you can work your way up once you've actually built up some product ranking and some variations and things like that. But day one, you got to look at your competitors, and that's pretty much it.
So pricing definitely should be factored into product vetting.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. If you don't, then what else
Yeah.
is there to do?
I would agree with that, but I've spoken to some people who say, oh, okay, to make profit, I have to sell it at X. And then you look at the market and you're like, unfortunately, that may or may not be possible.
Yeah, no, and that's really where if you're going to be, you need visibility, and that's where you need ad
Mm.
spend, but you can spend money and then people are going to see it. This is where it's going to show up. And now that it's going to show up on this page, now what? Are people
Yeah.
going to want to buy your item for $5 more? Potentially. But what value proposition are you giving the customer to show them that they should spend $5 more? And even if you're $5 less, is that something where in this category someone wants it to be cheaper? If it's a health item, you don't want to be cheaper than somebody else. But it really all starts with your baseline is who's ranking the best for the keywords that you're going after, and start to do your analysis there.
Yeah, that's a great way to evaluate a starting point. So then my next question would be, what are some of the things, like when it comes to price changes, what are some of the things that can influence or that can do for you?
So the beauty of Amazon is there's so much data that you're actually getting. One of the main things that we look at is usually your sessions and your conversion rates. So there's two different places that you can see this data. One is in your business report section. You have what they call a unit session percentage, which is basically what that loosely is defined as conversion rate. It's just different on Amazon than your ad spend conversion rate. But what that's actually saying is for every person that clicked on your listing, how many people actually purchased an item and what is that rate? So this is a super important thing to look at. What we live by just tracking our sessions. We don't even look at the unit session percentage for the most part because we know that if it's converting, Amazon will show you more. So if you can see a growth rate of your sessions, then that means ultimately that your item is going in the right direction. So now you have to now bring that back down to how is somebody going to actually see your item? And that's really where ad spend comes in. You're going to have no sessions unless you have some ad spend for these items. So in the beginning, you have to ramp up your ad spend, and in your ad spend console, you will see your conversion rate. So that's really going to start to really tell you if you're converting and people are seeing it. There are times where Amazon won't even show your advertisement because they don't think that on Black Friday, if that's an important weekend, that they don't want to give up their real estate to your item. So they're not even going to show your ad for any price because it's new, or which happened to us a lot over this weekend, where they didn't even want to advertise our items because they had so much money pouring in. They get paid for it. So if you're going to show your item and it's going to take an impression and you're not going to get a click, they're going to choose somebody else. So very often people will panic when they list their item and it's at $29.99, let's say, and it's not selling. So you really have to understand, is the item not selling because nobody likes it, or is it not selling because nobody's seeing it and it's not converting? So once you have that data point and you're looking at your ad spend, your conversion rate there, and then your overall session data and conversion rates, now you can start to paint a picture of, is this item actually being seen and does the customer actually like it? So some obvious flags are, if it actually is converting, then you have the ability to try and see if you can push a price up and see if you can maintain that conversion rate. Generally, when you see that you have sessions, so if people are seeing the item or you're spending money on advertising and people are seeing those advertisements and it's not converting, then you have to start pulling that lever of potentially bringing the price down. Very often, it may not be price, it may be listing optimization, it may be some keyword work. But if your very important piece is if you're seeing no session data or very low session data, that doesn't mean your listing needs to be optimized. It doesn't mean that your price needs to be reduced. It means that something needs to be tweaked either in your ad spend or in your overall strategy if you're not spending enough money on ads to get the customer to look at this item and then make a decision of, is the price even a factor? So that's really the most important metric, is making sure that you have visibility into your items so that you can make an educated decision whether or not you should price.
So that's a great way to quantify it. I think it makes total sense to look at it that way because you're right. If there's no eyeballs on the product, how are you even going to evaluate if it's good or bad? I had a question, and it might be it depends on the category, but do you have a certain minimum number of sessions you would like to see before you evaluate?
Yeah,
Is that even possible?
So that's a constant discussion and constantly changes basically even in the time of year and in the category. And it's also very important to look at these things on a parent level. A lot of people have variations. So if you have a variation that's getting no sessions and it's on a parent, that's different than if you have an entire parent that's not getting visibility. So if someone's looking at your parent listing and you have 4 items, and let's say there's a red, blue, white, and green item, if the green one's not getting any visibility and it's on a parent and the rest are, you may have no sessions on that, but if the parent has sessions, people are looking at it and they don't want it and they're not even clicking. So that's just a different mindset. So now the question becomes, what is a session count where you should say, this is low enough where I don't want to make a decision? We like to use 5 per day, as if we have less than 5 sessions, then it's as if it's no one seeing it. We push that up towards 8 to 10 come the season, where there's just that much more traffic on Amazon and there's just more people potentially shopping. But that number is a constant, balance of what's meaningful and what's not. 0 is 0, and everybody agrees on that. And there are a lot of times where you will literally have no sessions for these items, and we do what you do full agency level where we're managing accounts, and people will say, reduce the price, it's not selling. And say, that's not the answer. You didn't want to advertise the item because you weren't committed to it, and now nobody's seeing it, so dropping the price has no value. So there's literally a 0 on the board for sessions, and they'll go through and say, drop by 20%. It's just an illogical conclusion. So if you want to actually make a move, so you have to spend money on advertising, because we always make the example, I'm a retailer at heart, that if the rack is in the stock room, it doesn't matter if you marked it down. And that's basically what people just get confused on Amazon. They just feel like if it's on Amazon, it's all on the floor. And that's not what it is. 0 sessions means your item is literally not on the retail floor. And you have to bring it to the floor in order to see if somebody actually even wants it. So that's really step 1 in the game, is just that analysis of when a customer saw what.
Yeah, I love that. And I think talking about, okay, so providing we have sessions, providing you have some kind of conversion rate data to base off of, when would you determine, hey, maybe we should test adjusting our price? Do you have specific triggers for that? Do you always be testing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, we're in always be testing is our mantra. And we like to test in small increments. Our software is ultimately built on my philosophy, which is very much just I have anxiety. So I like to move slowly up because I'm always nervous. And if something is not working, then we'll generally drop pretty quickly. A general rule that we go by is if our conversion and velocity has dropped by 15% over any 24 to 48 hour period, just go back to where you were before. Barring we have some categories that have a Saturday, Sunday type of business where they're business type items, and so we'll exclude things from that. But if it's a regular 7-day-a-week business, if you see 48 hours where an item is dropping in velocity because of a price change, then go down quickly. And if we move up in 2% increments, 4% increments, just to test the water at literally each price point. And what I've heard on different podcasts, webinars, people say that if you change a price, when Amazon sees a price change, it can negatively affect your BSR and your conversion and, where they show you. And that's absolutely not correct. What Amazon does not care if you sell your item for $50 or $100, but when you make a big move, they immediately see conversion rates drop. So if your conversion rates are dropping, then they're going to stop showing you where they were previously showing it. So if you move up slowly, then you're much more likely to catch a massive drop and be able to adjust and bring your pricing back down than if you try and say, oh, my item's $30 today, let me try $40. Maybe people will buy for $40. Then all of a sudden at $40, your conversions will instantly potentially go from 10 units a day to 0 a day. So the second Amazon sees you've gone for 6 hours without selling it, they're going to take you off that real estate section of being on page 1 or page 2, wherever you were showing whatever keywords you were ranking for. Once the item stops converting, they're just going to pull you off. So it really is more about making sure that you don't have any massive drops in conversion and moving your pricing up incrementally. Be patient, go slowly. It's definitely worth it because when you fall off the mountain with Amazon, it's really much harder to get back up.
Yeah, and I would also imagine that allows you to more easily find the sweet spot, because if you're going from, say, 30 to 40, what if your sweet spot was 32, but you went from 30 to 40 to back down to 30? You've missed where you could have been versus, again,
Exactly.
shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, no, and even worse, people think that when you go from 40 to, let's say you went from 30 to 40, and you went from page 1 to page 80, then when you put it back to 30, you're on page 80, so no one even knows. And they're like, but I don't understand. I reduced it back to 30. I was selling 15 a day. Now I'm selling 1 a day. What's wrong with Amazon? Nothing's wrong with Amazon. Told Amazon to put me on page 80. And now that you're back at the original price, you're still that far in the back of the line. So now you're going to have to spend a ton of money on advertising to just bring yourself back to where you were before. So if the sweet spot was 32, it's going to cost you that much more money in advertising to find out that you can even get back to 32. Because if you leave yourself for too long, you just keep dropping. And people have to understand that with Amazon, when you drop your page rankings and you drop in those keywords, that a simple price change does not bring you back up to page 1.
Like you were saying with the sessions and the visibility, obviously. Like
Correct.
you shot yourself with the sessions, and so now you have to work to get the sessions back before you can then reassess. Well, so here's another question, because we answered the one on how you should go up or down. I think you covered that masterfully. But my next question would be, so you're saying always be testing. Is there a specific time you should adjust your price, or are there times when maybe you shouldn't be adjusting your price?
In that sense, I'll say you have to have an understanding of your categories for the most part. And we like to test higher pricing when you're going into a higher conversion rate period, even days of the week. So if your weekends are stronger, we usually would like to raise our prices on a Friday going into a stronger period because you're already converting better, as opposed to if your Saturday and Sunday are your strongest and now you're dropping in conversions on Monday. If you now add in another factor of raising your price, which might negatively affect your conversions, now you're hitting a double whammy to the Amazon algorithm that's basically saying that we're not converting. So you want to try and push up pricing during when you think your item is going to do best for the most part. Most accounts will have some very easy charts that you can map out with any software that will show you like your days of the week of when you're performing well. And that's generally how we like to move our pricing up. And for the most part, with that same logic, generally like to only move pricing up if the velocity is going in the right direction. So if an item is suffering in general and you're trending down, that's, again, unless you have no choice, cost change, price, something happen in the market where you have to raise a price. This is talking about when do we want to make a strategic price move up you want to make a price move up when your item is trending in the right direction overall.
And
So
by
that
right direction, are we obviously like conversion rate, but would you also say increasing in sessions?
generally velocity in sessions, we look at velocity as really the key metric. And because velocity in sessions are almost like 1-to-1 when we map them on our graphs. They almost always go in the same line. The only difference is your velocity data is usually more current than your session data. Because Amazon, I think on the report section, it's 2 days. It's 2 days back. And now through the API, we're seeing it 1 day back, which is a lot better than it's been. But that only, is visibility the last 2-3 months. But you're a day behind. So we really map everything to velocity because it's more current. And we historically didn't want to wait 2 days to make a decision. And just so we really were always mapping velocity to sessions, and it really is very rare that those two things diverge.
That's really interesting. I guess it's not a side point in pricing. So are you saying you typically see with increases in sessions also comes increases in conversion rate? Am I reading?
It's almost what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Why is Amazon going to, you have your ad spend, right? Which is really what kicks you into gear. And once you have your ad spend and people are seeing the item, if it's converting, Amazon's going to show you more. If it's not converting, they're going to show you less. And what does converting mean? Ultimately, it's just velocity in sales. So at the end of the day, when your sessions are moving in the right direction, it usually means your sales are good and your conversions are good. Once your conversions start to drop, Amazon's going to start showing you less. So there's that spot, and you can map it. We look at every item. You can literally map it by day of what happens. And you see right away, the minute your conversion rate starts to go down, your sessions will start to drop, which means that your sales are basically starting to drop also. So all those things just always go, it's almost like a very similar graph for all of those. And it's a matter of making sure that which is what we always go to because that data is the most current, is always velocity, that when your velocity starts to drop, that if you can move a price, that you want to move your pricing down in order to protect against any velocity drops. And when you're going in the right direction, to take that opportunity to try a higher price because your sessions are moving in the right direction. Amazon's showing you more. So I think the easiest example that everybody knows is when you're on page 2, if you're selling something for $25, you might be able to get $30 on page 1. Just because the tendency of shoppers is on page 1, they're less price conscious. Once you get to if they spent the time to scroll through all of page 1 and get to page 2, chances are that they're going to keep looking and go to page 3 or 4, and it's a much more price conscious customer. If you made it to page 1, you put the work in, you spent the money, you reduce your pricing, that's really your time where you can test higher pricing, and potentially you'll keep converting at that higher pricing. And now we always say take advantage of that upward spiral, where don't take that extra margin and not spend money on advertising. Like now you have more margin, double down. And now you see that it's converting at $27. It used to be at $25. You're converting just as much or more. You have more margin, put it into ad spend and keep the flywheel going so that you continue to push up to as close as you can to be number 1 for the keywords that you're going at.
Yeah, we've seen very similar things with completely different conversion rates on page 1, page 2, page 3. I would agree with you. There's very conscious shoppers so you tend to see better performance. I know you've touched on this a little bit, but I would love to expand on it a little bit more. So I know there's some things you were saying on being careful, like adjusting rapidly with your pricing. Is there anything else we should be careful of when it comes to price adjustments?
Yes. So there's some major things that we've messed up over the years that we've learned, and then with each screw up we learn painfully, and then we try and share with our accounts not to make these mistakes again. One of the scariest things is when you're doing price reductions. If you have product on other marketplaces, a Walmart, your own, it's usually Walmart, Macy's, Target, Sears, these other marketplaces that you can't control. When you reduce your price, you will very often have a competitor like Walmart match to that price point, which is all fine and dandy, but now you want to raise your price. When you go to try and raise your price, if Walmart doesn't, Amazon will press your buy box and they won't allow you to advertise that item, and it'll say available from these sellers. So sometimes it can take 24 hours to clear, sometimes for Walmart to change their price back, sometimes it can take up to 30 days. So if you know you're on other marketplaces, then before you go and test your whole catalog of 1,000 SKUs, which we've done in the past. Test one. Try and understand what's happening and what Walmart's going to do and what Macy's is going to do and if they're going to price match. And then try and see how long it's going to take for your price to go back up when you raise your price. Sometimes Walmart will go right away and you just have to be patient. But very often, especially if you're using software, you'll try and bring your price back up, and then software will automatically bring your price back down to match the buy box. So you'll end up in this downward spiral of you wanted to test a lower price, Walmart stays down forever, you stay down forever, and all of a sudden this 1-day price test turns into I have a new price that's 10% lower because you just wanted to test a lower price point. So you really have to be conscious of what the other marketplaces are doing when you reduce your price.
That's a really great call up. My question, so I think that's such a good tip on testing one product versus an entire catalog. One product going down versus an entire catalog. I'll take the one product all day long. Do you find that if it's in like a similar category or similar products, it tends to react similarly on the other marketplaces, or is it's a good limited test? There's no guarantees.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. They're the only thing that they usually track UPC codes. So if you have the same UPC on both websites, one of the things that we'll always say is when you're creating the item, create them with 2 different UPC codes. That makes it harder for Amazon to actually track what's happening on other marketplaces. And very often it's too late, because you didn't even realize when you created this item, like who knew, we all have a lot of legacy items that are like that. Going forwards, we know create new items with different UPC codes for Walmart and Amazon, but we have tons of products from 2016 that have been up forever and now they're in Walmart and potentially have problems. But there really is no rhyme or reason for what Walmart does for what Amazon's going to scrape, because it's just, you don't know what Walmart's algorithm is doing on a day-to-day basis. Like, for example, the last month, Walmart has been crazy aggressive with price. They've been reducing everything in a way that we have not seen since they started. All of a sudden, in the last month, whatever we do, they reduce the price and match. And is Amazon going to scrape that? Or it's up to them. But just being conscious of what they're doing is definitely important.
Yeah, and that was a great pro tip on the UPC codes. I had no idea about that. So those of you listening looking to get into Walmart or other marketplaces, I definitely recommend that you take Jason's tip and make sure to differentiate UPC
just
codes.
Put another UPC code on it. It's worth the 5 cents or 25 cents or whatever it is that it's going to cost you, especially because Walmart usually does 10% of what people do on Amazon. So you'll end up sacrificing margin on Amazon because let a warehouse or a 3PL or your own warehouse to just build it with a different UPC code the first time. So it's definitely, Walmart is not anywhere close to Amazon, but when it comes to this stuff, it can cause a lot of heartache as far as pricing and the ability to.
That's great. Again, great tip, and we appreciate you being willing to share hard-learned lessons with us.
Yeah, more hard-learned lessons. Subscribe and save. A lot of people who do subscribe and save, supplements, different foods, shampoos, whatever it is, those items as well, when Amazon will allow you to raise the price by within a 10% window of where your current price is when you're on subscribe and save. So if you want to reduce a price, you have to understand that when you reduce, that now you're limiting how much you can increase that price by in the future. Because if you're at 30 and then you reduce it to $27.50, the most you can go is back up to 30. Because or whatever that math is that I probably just messed up, or 27 down 30, whatever it is, that 10% number. So what we will usually recommend is that if you want to test a lower price point, turn it off on subscribe and save, see if your conversions increase when you start to reduce that price. Then if you've reduced the price and you find that price point is now converting better, you have more sales, you're more profitable because of that new velocity, then turn subscribe and save back on. But if you actually do that, bring the price down and leave subscribe and save on, then you find when you want to go back up, now Amazon's going to give you some problems. And now you basically limited the ceiling for your item because you did a price test at a lower price point. And now you're going to suffer on your whole subscribing.
And that's another pitfall. Yeah. Is there any other ones for us? Or I'm sure there's been plenty along the way.
One of the other things that which is not as pertinent now, but if you want to do on Prime Day, Prime deals, Black Friday deals, Cyber Month, all these deals,
Amazon's going to make you basically price it at 10% below your lowest price in the last 30 days. So you want to make sure in that run up to any of these sales that you don't just for the sake of trying test an item and drop it by $2, $3, $5 for whatever reason. Because when you do that, you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot, and all of a sudden Amazon's not going to let you run a Black Friday deal at a price that you want that could have been profitable and could have done really well. Then you'll end up shooting yourself in the foot. And something that we do a lot of Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals, and something that happened, which I'm not sure if it's happened on Prime Day, but it may have. Amazon set their desktop filter to set Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals only. So when you log on to your desktop, if you're not in that deal category, your items are effectively going to. So if you limited yourself by reducing a price in the run up to any deals, and now you can't be in that category because now you're going to be selling below cost or whatever that is. Now you really just shot yourself in the foot for what you Black Friday, which now turned into 5 days. So now it's the 5 busiest days of the year. You really want to protect against making those kind of mistakes and dropping price in that run up. Definitely painful.
That's great points for sure. And I know, again, it's another thing that you touched on in the beginning on determining, like, okay, what should you be tracking? How should you be effective? But I'd love for you to cover that again. So when you're adjusting prices, again, gradually up or down, paying attention to these potential pitfalls, how do you determine like the effectiveness of price change? What are you tracking? How do you say, okay, that worked? No, that didn't.
So we generally, one of the things that we like to look at is, especially recently, since March when the world changed, so like before and after, I guess we'll call it the war, when the whole world seemed to change for at least Amazon sellers, reducing price has become a lot more important than it did before. Like we really spent better of, since COVID started, 2 years, it feels like, just testing price increases. And the rule that we had really gone by was always that a 2% increase, 4% increase usually didn't hurt you on the way up. And it also on the way down didn't make a difference. So for that reason, if it's not going to make a difference on the way down, you may as well go up because no one seemed to be looking at price. So for us, price increases was always just the way to go. We barely showed, unless we would always say go big or go home. If you're not going to drop your price by 10 or 20%, it's not even worth doing. Now what we're finding is that since, we'll call it April, May, whatever it is, and even more so as the world seems to keep changing, is that bringing down price has become just as important, if not more important, than increasing price. And we're really starting to focus more on profit dollars as opposed to profit margin. We'll have a lot of sellers that will come to us and say, I can't work on less than 30 points margin. I just can't. I'll be like, so if you want to sell one piece at 30 points margin, you'll make $10. But if you can sell 50 pieces at 20 points margin, you're going to make $500. So I understand that the margin isn't necessarily there for you, but the world has changed. Really trying to focus on, as opposed to margin, looking at your profit dollars week over week, understanding at X velocity versus a lower velocity at a higher price, trying to understand, does it make sense to have an item at a lower price and sell that much more if you can get closer to page one, conversions can go up, and really just starting to look at that profit dollar number and focusing less on what my margin is. Because that's just, again, the world's changing quickly. And it's something that if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have had a totally different answer. And now just looking at the data, everyone's inflation, costs are going up, and that's all we're hearing. And prices are coming down. So there's a margin squeeze where costs are up and everybody has more inventory than they believe that they thought they would at this point. Everybody ordered in 2021 forecasting 2022 being at 25% higher, and it's really at par 25% lower, which ultimately means that everybody's got more inventory. So at this point, there used to be more demand than supply. Now there's more supply than demand. So pricing and moving pricing down has really become much more important, because even if I have a hard time explaining this to some people, but even if you did a good job managing your inventory, doesn't mean that your competitor did a good job managing his inventory. So if his prices are lower, And if the whole market is pushing down because they are overstocked, you have to be in line with the market and really try and find that price where your overall profit dollars is basically better than it was at a previous price.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us back full circle to what you were talking about in the beginning, evaluating starting price. It's you need to be also looking at the market and what the market is pricing at. And that ultimately does have a big play on how customers view your products and ultimately determine if your product is valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely a very big difference between legacy items and new
Mhm.
items. On a legacy item where you have a ton of reviews and the Amazon algorithm has been seeing it forever, the ability to push up pricing on that stuff is going to be a lot easier. But if you're new on the block, you're launching something to that effect, price is going to be a much bigger factor in getting a customer to ultimately choose your item over else's item.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been great. You've dropped so much information. I've learned some stuff myself. I'm definitely going to be directing my sellers who asked the pricing question now to this recording. But before we go, I would love if someone says, hey, I would love to take a look at your pricing tool or maybe at your agency. Maybe I could use some help there. How can people get a hold of you?
So azsellerkit.com is the website. We have a contact us button there. It'll go to myself or Tyler or Lenny or whoever's fielding the responses that day. The tool really does a lot of the things that we said here in an automated fashion, and we're very hands-on kind of how we treat things. So a lot of the feedback we've gotten from sellers who sign on with us is their expectation would be that they signed on to the tool and that they have to manage things themselves and take care of it. And they're surprised and we don't do a good enough job marketing the fact that we really are getting in the weeds with you and managing your catalog with you and making sure that you're implementing the right strategies for your items. Once an account gets synced, we really do see a lot of data right away that just stands out to us because we're doing it every day. So we're one part, and this is just really as the software, forget the agency side, but we're noticing we're pricing consultants in general, where we just see things that don't even deal with automation. We'll do an analysis of your catalog right away and then help to put in strategies that make sense for what your ultimate needs are.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have all those links below so you can go check out AZ Seller Kit, get in touch with Jason and his team. And again, thank you so much for being on.